So, to save the euro, there may be a whole new European treaty. David Cameron will want to be supportive, but many Conservative backbenchers will know that at the election they could have the UK Independence Party breathing down their necks. So, what's more important, winning powers back from Brussels or supporting a solution to save the euro? To debate that, this afternoon I was joined by Matthew Hancock, Conservative MP and a close ally of the Chancellor George Osborne, and Nigel Farage, leader of the UK Independence Party. Nigel Farage, do you believe David Cameron is being outmanoeuvred by the Franco-German Axis?
To some extent, yes. I mean, let's not forget, though, that it was George Osborne who was the first European leader to urge full fiscal and political union. They're now pushing on towards that. I think Cameron's big worry is that they're going for a treaty change. And how does he sell to the British public the fact that there's been a treaty change and then attempt to deny us a referendum? And that's going to be the real issue in British politics.
Matt Hancock?
Well, I think that the breakup of the euro would be a very, very serious disaster for the UK and for the UK economy. And so a currency area can only work if there's fiscal union behind it. So for the euro area to move towards fiscal union actually strengthens the euro, and so will strengthen the European economy if they can sort this out.
But you don't have a problem with that, do you?
No, I do have a problem with that, because fiscal union, under the German proposal, means that we will drive countries like Greece and Portugal and possibly even Italy into total depressions with mass unemployment and huge civil unrest. I think it's absolutely mad for the British government to be supporting the destruction of democracy across the whole of Europe in the attempt to prop up a euro which clearly is failing.
Well, I wouldn't propose the destruction of democracy, as you put it.
But it's happening.
I think far more dangerous would be the disorderly collapse of the euro, which would have a ricochet through banking systems and lead to bank collapses throughout the euro area and have serious negative implications for our economy here. So we've got to look at this in terms of the national interest here in the UK.
We have seen democratically elected governments in Greece and Italy removed by the bully boys from Brussels with German support and replaced with lackeys of the system and people who were the architects of this failure. Surely, if we're good Europeans, we should urge those countries to leave the euro and get their democracies back.
Well, the danger of the euro breaking up is that the banking system in the euro area, which we already know is weak, becomes even weaker, and banks collapse, and we have the second round of what we saw in 2008. We heard these sorts of arguments before Lehman's collapsed by people saying, let Lehman's go, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. And we all saw what happened then. It was extremely ugly.
Now we're looking at a renegotiation of treaties or a new treaty. Isn't the fact that Britain's biggest national interest now is making sure that the Eurozone doesn't implode? And so all this talk of repatriating powers has had to be put to the wayside because the Germans and the French are going to say, we don't have time, don't mess around with that, we've got to sort out the Eurozone now.
Well,
so you have been outmanoeuvred on this one?
Well, no. If there's a treaty change that involves the UK, then of course that is a moment when you can bring powers back to the UK. And there have been discussions about what they might be. Well, for instance, the fisheries policy. That's one example, and there are many others.
But is that going to be the condition to British agreement to a new treaty? Well, that you get these repatriation powers?
Well, in a treaty negotiation, of course there's discussions about which powers should be done at an EU level and which should be done at a British level.
This government fully supports Britain's membership of the European Union. Renegotiation is not even on the agenda because they've got bigger fish to fry. And surely, isn't the reality that now the vast majority of the British people and British businesses want us to have a free and fair referendum to decide our future, and it's your government denying us that?
I want a trading arrangement with Europe. I want to make sure that we can trade, given that 50% of our exports go to EU countries. It is to EU countries. No, that's to euro area countries. 50% to the EU, and you want to come out of the EU.
And you don't?
I don't want to come out of the EU because I want to trade with people in the EU.
Switzerland is not a member of the EU. Norway is not a member of the EU. They have exactly the same terms of trade that we do.
And in order to trade, they have to abide by every single EU rule, but they have no influence over writing.
They're opted out. They're opted out of most of EU rules.
The point is, Nigel Farage, that there is a Eurozone crisis right now that, if it is not solved, will directly affect the British economy, could push us back into recession for an awful long time. And you're talking about leaving the European Union rather than solving that immediate crisis?
We cannot solve this.
That makes you sound...
We cannot solve this immediate crisis. Nobody can solve this immediate crisis. There are fundamental differences.
So we're just doomed?
No, what we need to do is stop pouring good money after bad and recognise that the right thing to do is to help countries like Greece and Portugal get out of the euro, re-establish their own currencies, have a competitive devaluation and get their democracy
What would happen
back.
if you did that, Matt Hancock?
Well, the first thing is, say you're Portuguese and you have a mortgage, and your mortgage is denominated in euros, and Portugal leaves the euro, and its currency falls, your mortgage would double. Your mortgage payments would double. So you would be in a very serious economic situation yourself, and that would happen to millions of families and businesses across countries that leave the euro. And so the consequences, can you imagine the consequences of that on those economies and on the banking systems in countries that left the euro?
Matt Hancock and Nigel Farage.